The legend of the old department store had been a staple of local lore in my small town for as long as I could remember. Nestled in the heart of the forgotten district, its decaying facade and dusty windows stood as silent witnesses to a bygone era. I'm Sally, a bit of an adrenaline junkie and an avid urban explorer. When I first heard the tales about the mannequins in the store, I dismissed them as nothing more than spooky stories to scare kids. But as the whispers grew more insistent, my curiosity got the better of me. It wasn't just the thrill of exploration, it was the mystery, the need to debunk the myth that propelled me towards that eerie, abandoned building. I remember the night I decided to venture into the store. It was a moonless evening, the kind where shadows seem to dance and play tricks on your eyes. Armed with my trusty camera and a flashlight, I approached the store. The front door was boarded up, a silent sentinel warding off intruders, but that wasn't going to stop me. I found a broken window round the back, carefully avoiding the shards of glass, and hoisted myself inside. The air was thick with dust and decay, a stark contrast to the once vibrant life this place must have witnessed. My flashlight's beam cut through the darkness, revealing rows upon rows of mannequins. They stood there, frozen in time, dressed in faded outfits that were fashionable decades ago. Their faces, blank and featureless, seemed to stare back at me, sending a shiver down my spine. I shook off the feeling, chalking it up to the eerie setting. It's just an old store, Sally. There's nothing to be afraid of, I whispered to myself. I began to walk through the aisles, taking pictures, capturing the haunting beauty of decay. But as I moved deeper into the heart of the store, I couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched. I turned around several times, half expecting to see someone or something behind me, but there was nothing. Just the silent figures and their unseeing eyes. The longer I stayed, the more unsettling the atmosphere became. The mannequins, with their lifeless poses, seemed almost mocking in the dim light of my flashlight. I focused on my camera, trying to document every detail, every shadowed corner. It was when I reviewed one of the photos that I first noticed a mannequin that I could have sworn was positioned differently just moments ago. I blinked, looking up from my camera. There it was, in the same pose as in the photo, but I was certain it had been facing another direction before. A rational part of my mind urged me to consider the possibility of a trick of the light or a mistake in my perception. But a deeper, more primal part of me whispered that something was very wrong in this forsaken place. It was then that I heard it. A soft, almost imperceptible whisper. It was so faint, I thought I might have imagined it. I held my breath, listening intently, but there was only silence. I tried to shake off the feeling of unease that had settled in my chest. You're here for a reason, Sally. Keep going, I muttered under my breath, pushing forward into the depths of the store. Little did I know, the true nature of the store was yet to reveal itself to me, and my night was about to take a turn into the realm of the inexplicable. Moving deeper into the heart of the department store, the air grew colder, the silence more profound. The only sound was the soft patter of my footsteps and the occasional creak of the old wooden floor. My flashlight's beam became my sole companion, casting long, ominous shadows among the aisles of mannequins. With each step, the feeling of being watched intensified. It was as if the mannequin's blank eyes followed me, tracking my every move. I tried to laugh it off, to maintain a semblance of rationality, but the laughter died in my throat. It was too real, too palpable. The whisper I had heard earlier now seemed like a distant warning, a prelude to something far more sinister. I continued to take photos, a part of me still clinging to the purpose of my visit. But as I progressed, I couldn't help but notice more oddities. Mannequins that I had passed earlier were now in slightly different positions. A hand tilted at a different angle, a head turned slightly towards me. My rational mind fraught with the growing sense of dread. It's just your imagination, Sally. This place is playing tricks on your mind, I reassured myself. But the seed of doubt had been planted. It was then that my flashlight flickered, casting erratic shadows across the rows of silent figures. The whispers returned, this time louder, more insistent. They were indistinct, a chorus of hushed tones that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. I spun around, half expecting to confront a tangible source, but there was nothing. Just the lifeless figures in their eternal vigil. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat echoing loudly in the stillness. I tried to focus, to find a logical explanation for what was happening. Faulty flashlight, old building settling, nothing more, I told myself. But the part of me that thrived on fear, on the thrill of the unknown, couldn't help but feel excited, alive. Amidst the chaos of my thoughts, I stumbled upon a door, partially hidden behind a tattered curtain. Curiosity overcame fear, and I pushed the door open. The room beyond was small, cluttered with old files and forgotten employee belongings. It was a time capsule, a snapshot of the store's final days. My flashlight illuminated a desk in the corner, covered in papers. I approached, my interest peaked. The papers were a mix of old employee records and personal notes. One, in particular, caught my eye. It was a journal, belonging to someone named Marianne, a former employee. The entries were mundane at first, but as I flipped through the pages, a chilling narrative unfolded. Marianne wrote about the mannequins, about how they seemed to have a life of their own. She described incidents similar to what I was experiencing. Subtle movements, strange positions, the feeling of being watched. Her words resonated with my own experience, validating my fears. The final entry was the most disturbing. Marianne claimed that the mannequins were alive, that they whispered to her, sharing secrets of a dark and malevolent nature. A cold shiver ran down my spine as I read her words. The whispers around me seemed to grow louder, more excited. It was as if Marianne's fears, her beliefs, had awakened something in the store. I closed the journal, a sense of unease settling deep within me. It was no longer just a thrill-seeking adventure. I was treading in the realm of the unknown, and the rules of reality no longer seemed to apply. I left the room, my resolve shaken. The store had transformed in my eyes. It was no longer just an old building, it was a vessel for something inexplicable, something that defied explanation. The mannequins, once just creepy relics, now seemed imbued with a malevolent presence. I needed to leave, to escape this place. But as I turned to retrace my steps, I realized the layout of the store had changed. The familiar aisles were gone, replaced by a labyrinthine maze that seemed to shift and change with each step I took. Panic set in as I tried to find my way back. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of voices that seemed to mock my plight. I was lost, trapped in a world that no longer obeyed the laws of physics or reason. The mannequins, once mere spectators, now felt like predators, stalking me through the twisted corridors of the store. In my heart, I knew the truth. The store was alive, and I was its latest victim. The maze of aisles seemed endless, a twisted warren that defied all sense of direction. My panic rose with each wrong turn, each dead end. The mannequins, those silent, unmoving figures, now felt like they were closing in on me, their unseen eyes boring into my back. The whispers had grown into a constant murmur, a soundtrack to my growing terror. I tried to remember the way I had come, but it was useless. The store had transformed into a living, breathing entity, its layout changing with my every move. The mannequins seemed to be hurting me, guiding me deeper into the heart of this nightmare. Every time I glanced back, I saw them in different positions, as if they had moved the moment I looked away. It was impossible, I told myself, but the evidence was there, mocking my disbelief. I stumbled upon a section of the store I hadn't seen before. It was a children's department, the mannequins here smaller, their blank faces somehow more menacing. Toys and clothes were scattered around, covered in layers of dust, untouched by time. In the dim light of my flickering flashlight, the shadows seemed to dance, giving the illusion of movement. In the center of the room stood a large, antique mirror, its surface dull and speckled with age. I approached it hesitantly, my reflection distorted in the murky glass. But as I stared, the reflection changed. It wasn't my face staring back at me, but a multitude of faces, twisted in anguish and fear. I gasped, stepping back, my heart racing. The mirror was a portal to another world, a window into the souls trapped within the store. I turned to leave, but my path was blocked by a circle of mannequins. They had moved silently, encircling me. Their blank faces seemed to stare, accusing, condemning. I was trapped, with no way out. The whispers crescendoed into a deafening roar, the voices angry, vengeful. In a moment of desperation, I pushed through the circle, my hands trembling. The mannequins felt unnaturally warm to the touch, their plastic skin almost lifelike. I broke free, running blindly through the aisles, my only thought to escape this madness. As I ran, the store seemed to warp and twist around me. Walls bent at impossible angles, floors sloped and rose unpredictably. The laws of physics were no longer in control here, something else was. The mannequins appeared and disappeared, their positions ever changing, a macabre ballet orchestrated by an unseen force. In my frenzied state, I barely noticed the photos spilling from my camera, the images captured now meaningless. The real horror was here, in this shifting, living nightmare. I stumbled upon a staircase I hadn't seen before, leading up to a second level. With no other options, I ascended, each step creaking under my weight. The second floor was different, quieter. The whispers had faded to a faint echo, a respite from the chaos below. Here, the mannequins were older, their features more defined, more human. It was a gallery of the past, each figure dressed in the attire of a different era. But their eyes, those blank empty eyes, followed me with the same malevolent intent. I moved through the room, my footsteps echoing in the silence. The sense of being watched was overwhelming, the feeling of unseen eyes tracking my every move. I was a trespasser in their domain, an unwelcome intruder in a world that had long since forgotten the light of day. In the center of the room stood a single mannequin, different from the rest. It was dressed in a tattered employee uniform, its face more lifelike, more real. I approached cautiously, a sense of recognition stirring within me. The name tag read Marianne, and I knew, without a doubt, that this was her, the author of the journal, now forever a part of the store's twisted collection. As I stood there, staring into Marianne's painted eyes, I understood the true horror of the store. It wasn't just a building, it was a collector, a keeper of souls. And I had willingly walked into its embrace. The realization hit me like a physical blow, the weight of my situation crushing me. I had to find a way out, to escape before I became another permanent resident of this cursed place. But as I turned to leave, the layout shifted again, the exit disappearing, replaced by a wall of silent, judging figures. The store was alive, and it wasn't going to let me leave easily. The realization that the department store was not just a building, but a living entity with a malevolent will of its own, sent waves of despair crashing over me. Each mannequin seemed to be a trapped soul, their silent screams etched into their frozen faces. The knowledge that Marianne, the woman whose journal I had read, was one of them, intensified my fear. It was a fate I was desperate to avoid. I pushed through the eerie stillness, my mind racing for a solution. The whispers had returned, now filled with mocking laughter, as if the store reveled in my panic. The second floor was a maze just like the first, but if I needed to get back to the ground floor to find another way out. Every exit I found led to another twisted corridor or dead end, the store reshaping itself to thwart my escape. In my desperation, I started to notice patterns in the layout. It was as if the store was leading me somewhere, guiding me to its heart. The whispers grew louder, forming coherent sentences now. "You can't leave," they hissed. "You're one of us now." The voices were chilling, filled with sorrow and malice. I tried to shut them out, to focus on finding a way out, but they were omnipresent, echoing in the hollow spaces of the store. After what felt like hours, I found myself standing in front of a grand staircase, leading down to the first floor. It was different from the rest of the store, untouched by the decay that had claimed the rest of the building. As I descended, the air grew colder, the atmosphere heavier. The ground floor was a stark contrast to the upper levels. It was a cavernous space, filled with rows of mannequins standing in perfect formation. They were different from the others, their faces were more detailed, more human. Their eyes seemed to follow me as I walked through the rows, a silent audience to my plight. At the end of the room stood a large ornate door, its surface carved with strange symbols that seemed to shift and change as I looked at them. It was mesmerizing, hypnotic. I knew instinctively that this was the heart of the store, the source of its power. With a trembling hand, I reached for the doorknob, but before I could touch it, the door swung open on its own. A blast of cold air hit me, and the whispers fell silent. Beyond the door was darkness, a void that seemed to stretch into infinity. I stepped through the threshold, my flashlight barely penetrating the darkness. The air was thick, charged with an unseen energy. I felt as if I was being watched by 1,000 unseen eyes, judged by an unseen force. The room was circular, the walls lined with mirrors. In each mirror, I saw a different reflection of myself, each one more distorted than the last. But it wasn't just my reflection, I saw glimpses of other people, their faces twisted in fear and despair. There were the other victims of the store, their souls trapped in the mirrors. In the center of the room stood a pedestal, and on it, a book. It was old, its pages yellowed with age. I approached it cautiously, the sense of dread growing with each step. The book was a ledger, filled with names, each accompanied by a date. There were the names of the store's victims, including Marianne's. I flipped through the pages, my heart sinking as I realized the magnitude of the store's hunger. It had been feeding on souls for decades, each victim lured in by curiosity or happenstance. And now, my name was going to be added to the list. The room started to spin, the mirrors blurring into a kaleidoscope of faces. The whispers returned, louder than ever, a cacophony of voices that filled my head. I was trapped, caught in the heart of the store, with no way out. In that moment of utter despair, I understood the true nature of the store. It wasn't just a collector of souls, it was a reflection of our deepest fears, our darkest desires. We were drawn to it, compelled by our own curiosity, our own need to face the unknown. And now, I was a part of it, another victim of its insatiable appetite. The realization was suffocating, the finality of it crushing. I was lost, swallowed by the darkness, another whisper in the chorus of the damned. Surrounded by the encroaching darkness and the relentless whispers, I felt a deep sense of hopelessness. The realization that I was likely to become another lost soul in this twisted store was overwhelming. The book in front of me, with its endless list of names, seemed like a tombstone marking the death of my freedom, my very essence. But amidst the despair, a stubborn part of me refused to give in. I wasn't going to let this be my end. Desperation lent me strength. I slammed the book shut, breaking the trance. The room spun faster, the mirrors blurring into a vortex of faces and voices. I knew I couldn't fight this store on its terms, it was a force beyond my understanding. But maybe, just maybe, I could outsmart it. I remembered the journal entries from Marianne, how she spoke of the mannequins and their connection to the store. If they were part of it, maybe they were also its weakness. I needed to disrupt the balance, create chaos in this too-perfect prison. Racing back into the main hall, I started to push over the mannequins, breaking the formation. The store reacted immediately, the air crackling with energy. The whispers turned to screams, a cacophony of rage and confusion. The building shook, the walls bending and twisting as if in pain. In the chaos, I noticed the layout of the store shifting, openings appearing and disappearing in the ever-changing walls. I ran towards each new path, only to find it closing off, the store adapting to my actions. It was a maddening game of cat and mouse, and I was losing. But then, in a moment of clarity amidst the madness, I saw a pattern. The store was reacting to my actions, yes, but it was also guiding me, hurting me like it had before. Only this time, I understood its goal. It wanted me at its center, in the heart where I had found the book. I changed my strategy, moving towards the center of the store instead of away from it. The building seemed to hesitate, its movements less confident. I reached the room with the pedestal and the book once more, but this time, I was ready. I grabbed the book and, with all my strength, tore out the pages. The names of the victims fell like leaves around me, each one a life stolen by the store. The room convulsed, the mirrors cracking, the whispers turning into anguished howls. Then, amidst the chaos, a sliver of light appeared. It was a crack in the wall, growing wider as the store continued to shake. I didn't hesitate. I ran towards the light, the voices of the trapped souls echoing in my ears. I burst through the crack and into the night. The cold fresh air was like a balm to my senses. I collapsed onto the ground, gasping for breath, my heart pounding in my chest. Behind me, the store let out a final, anguished scream before collapsing in on itself. The building imploded, the sound deafening, the force throwing me further away. When the dust settled, there was nothing left but a pile of rubble. I lay there for a long time, trying to process what had happened. I had escaped, but at what cost? The store was gone, but so were the souls it had trapped. Mary Ann, the other victims, they were all part of its destruction. As the first rays of dawn touched the horizon, I stood up, my body aching, my mind weary. The camera, my faithful companion through this ordeal, was gone, lost in the collapse. But I didn't need it anymore. The images were etched in my memory, a haunting reminder of the night I faced the unknown and survived. I walked away from the ruins, my steps heavy but determined. The store was gone, but its legacy would live on in my mind, a silent sentinel of a night when reality twisted into nightmare. And somewhere, in the back of my mind, a whisper lingered, a haunting echo of the store's final scream. As the sun rose, casting its light over the remnants of the store, the surreal quality of the night's events began to sink in. I walked away from the wreckage, each step feeling heavier than the last. The ordeal had ended, but the echoes of those lost voices, the faces in the mirrors, continued to haunt me. The town slowly woke up, oblivious to the nightmare that had unfolded in the shadows of the old department store. I walked through the streets, feeling disconnected, like a ghost wandering through a world that no longer made sense. The familiar sights of the town offered no comfort, the normalcy of it all feeling alien after what I had experienced. I wanted to tell someone, to share the horror and madness of what had happened. But who would believe me? Without the photos, without any evidence, my story was just that, a story, as unbelievable and fantastical as the urban legends that had led me to the store in the first place. I considered going to the police, but I couldn't imagine how to explain it. The store had collapsed, yes, but the reason behind it, the truth of the living entity that it was, seemed impossible to articulate. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that some truths were too strange, too terrifying for the world to accept. The next few days passed in a blur. I couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched, of whispers just beyond the edge of hearing. Every mannequin in a store window, every reflection in a mirror, sent a jolt of fear through me. The boundary between reality and nightmare had been blurred, and I found myself questioning everything. Rumors began to circulate about the sudden collapse of the old department store. Some said it was due to structural instability, others spoke of a gas leak. But amidst the mundane theories, whispers of a more sinister nature began to surface. Stories of a curse, of a girl who had gone into the store and unleashed something terrible. I heard these rumors, and a part of me wanted to scream the truth, to tell them of the mannequins, the mirrors, the souls trapped in a never-ending nightmare. But I remained silent, the fear of being dismissed or, worse, of being believed, keeping me quiet. As time passed, the town moved on, the site of the store eventually cleared and left as an empty lot. A memorial was placed there, a tribute to the unexplained tragedy. I visited it often, staring at the names of those who had been lost over the years. Mary Ann's name was among them, a painful reminder of the store's true nature. I tried to return to my normal life, but the shadows of that night lingered. Sleep was elusive, filled with dreams of mannequins and mirrors, of whispers in the dark. The line between reality and nightmare remained blurred, a constant source of fear and fascination. The experience changed me in ways I couldn't fully understand. I became more withdrawn, more observant of the shadows that lurked just out of sight. The thrill of urban exploration, once a driving force in my life, had lost its appeal. The world was full of unseen horrors, and I had been lucky to escape with my life. As I write this, the memory of the store remains vivid in my mind, a haunting echo of a night when reality twisted into something unimaginable. The whispers still linger, a soft murmur in the back of my mind, a reminder that some mysteries are better left unexplored. The old department store is gone, but its legacy lives on in the whispers of the town, in the nightmares of a girl who faced the unknown. And somewhere, in the depths of my mind, I know that the store's hunger was never truly sated, that its whispers are a call, a beckoning to return to the shadows where reality and nightmare intertwine. And so, the story ends, but the echoes remain, unresolved and haunting, a whisper in the dark.